It's no secret to anyone that a lot is happening over the next week. In fact, I'd say the next week, the next several weeks, maybe even into several months to the end of this year. We've got the presidential campaign election coming to a close. Well, we think a close next Tuesday, November 5th, the actual final date of voting. Based on all that I see in the media and playing out in the airwaves and on the campaign trail and amongst the public sentiment, I think we all know that this country is very divided today, right down the middle. We have really extremes of left and right and everything else. And based on that, I'm concerned, as I'm sure you are, of how this is going to land, because this is a major election. I'm not here to be politic about it. You choose where you are, but I think we have to consider that the election decision may not be finalized on November 6th, the day after voting. It may be anywhere from several days to weeks. If it goes into legal battles, it could even go into 2 months, maybe to the first of the year. We don't know at this point. So there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and that uncertainty is not healthy, I don't believe at all, for this country. I don't believe you think it is either. It's unhealthy because, number one, there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of name calling. There's, again, a very divided country, which is never beneficial. Friendships are often tested at a high level when people get into talking about politics. And then there's really the other social and economic aspects. Economically speaking, with so much uncertainty out there, the markets themselves cannot make decisions, meaning people aren't going to make decisions. People become paralyzed because they want to wait and see, well, what's going to happen to make my decision? And many times those decisions are things of a personal nature. Do I send my kid to a certain college? Am I going to have enough money to do it? Can I make a move in my business? Can I expand? Should I make a certain investment today? The concerns over what's going to happen based on the results of the election are very paralytic across the board. And I think, again, this is a bad thing. There are certain things that I think are going to unfold after the election. That would be the tendency, well, not even the tendency, really, it's pretty well seen that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury and our government representatives have been manipulating the markets quite a bit in terms of interest rates and quantitative easing and deficit fiscal spending, meaning spending way more money than the government takes in, adding to the national debt. This has been going on, well, for decades now, but really in the last several years, and this is, again, bipartisan. It's not one party or the other. They're both doing it, and I don't see a change of that after the election, no matter which side wins. I think this massive overspending is going to continue, but it can't continue forever. And these problems, I think that where they've been able to keep the economy afloat. In other words, typically they look at, well, how's the stock market doing? That's really what they pin it on. Well, that only helps about 20% of the populace, because only about 20% of the populace really has any assets that they invest in, like the stock market, or it could be real estate, or it could be precious metals. Only about 20% or so really invest in those things. The other 80% of the population doesn't have any ability to utilize what's been promulgated in the marketplace, and that is pushing asset prices up. The asset bubbles we've seen really in all classes in the last several years. Financial markets are still rising high. There's been a little bit more fluctuation and volatility recently, and I think that's a sign that we're getting close to this election when whoever's in charge is going to take their foot off the pedal and say, okay, now it's a reality check. Now we just got to let things kind of fall and go back to reality, because there's no election on the stake on the line. As long as there's elections on the line, then the parties to be are going to do all they can to push it and make it look like everything's good, because no one's going to vote for a party that's in place or campaigning to be reelected if the economy's falling apart. So they keep things going until they get reelected or not. And then I think that's where the house of cards starts to fall. The dominoes will start to fall. I look for probably a major correction in the financial markets. Again, major could be anything from 20, 30, 40, 50% drop. Who knows? I can't pin it. I can't say exactly when, but I think all the artificial means of propping things up is going to take a hit. We've already seen in commercial real estate, because that being an inefficient marketplace is not driven as much by the sentiment of how people feel. It's a little bit more based on fundamentals, although again, the asset prices can be stoked heavily by lowering interest rates, which is kind of what the Federal Reserve is trying to do right now, trying to play both sides of the fight inflation, but also not have a recession. There's no way that the Federal Reserve can pin this down, I don't believe. They're talking about a soft landing, and I don't believe a soft landing is in the cards. I think after the election, again, who knows, whether it's a week after, a month after, or even to 2025, I think there's going to be a lot of change in the economy and the marketplace, irrespective of who wins the election. So my point is, we can't wait and make decisions based on who's going to win or lose the election. Those are things that we can't control in our lives. I look at what I can control, what things I do have jurisdiction over. And it's certainly not the election or the economy. It's not the climate, but it's what I can do in my own circle of economics. It's who I surround myself with. It's the business that I have at my hand that I can control. And it's the investment capital I decide to take charge of and make the moves that I think are most propitious in a marketplace that is very dynamic and I think is going to be very volatile over the next years. When I say years, I think we're not going to go back to a stable point where we have these long runs of an up market with a regular market cycle correction, and then we have another run up again. I think we're going to see much more volatility. I think a downturn is in the cards, and then probably long term, after we have some kind of a correction that comes through, we're going to see a lot of inflation. So learning how to hedge your business practices, your personal finances, and your outside investments, I think is something that everybody has to learn and be more in front of than ever before. The old models of being a passive investor or passive in anything in life, I think, are past. And that probably doesn't feel comfortable to a lot of people because it's easy to get into a place of complacency and saying, well, I'll just let someone else take care of it. I'll just put my money over here and kind of let the market take care of it. I think those days are over. And so learning more about the economic environment and really, I say positions of hedging, because there's no one investment that's going to take care of you or anyone else. There's no one 401k or money market or ETF or index fund. There's no one thing able to take care of you. I think diversification in asset classes that one understands and has done some study about is the place to be. That's where I'm going to be on the forefront. That's where I'm going to be looking and leading my tribe and my family as we go forward. I'm hosting a webinar. I'm going to have 3 experts with me on that evening. I won't name them right now, but I want to prepare you if you'd like to be a part of a webinar podcast with experts and myself discussing how we see the future in the economic marketplace, the political marketplace, and what that means for us in our respective businesses and for our families and our generational wealth. These are all things I know that are on your mind. No one likes to talk about them, but I'm here to bring it to the forefront. If you'd like to join me in that conversation, I hope to see you then.